Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be talking about books I read in June. So I read 11 books in June, including an audiobook. And also for once, my to-read pile is actually shorter than my read pile on Goodreads. Yay! I also finished a non-fiction book this month. It's also the first book I read this month. So let's just get started. The Life-Changing Magic of Marie Kondo. Oh no, The Life-Changing Magic of Tiding by Marie Kondo. This is translated into English. Apparently it's very popular in Japan, and then there was a Netflix series where Marie Kondo just went around people's homes teaching people her method of tidying, right? So there's the whole spark joy meme about this. Does this spark joy? If you are somebody that doesn't tidy at all, then this will help you out. There's some good tips in here, but there's a lot of excerpts of her childhood where she tidied her brother's room and like threw all his magazines out. So I'm like, I think you need some help. She has been obsessed with house tidying since she was a child. So that's what inspired her to write this book. But she is a very special case, I think. She seems very quirky. Some of the things she says, I don't agree, like how you should always wear loungewear. You don't wear like normal t-shirt and pants at home, you know, your old shirts or sweatshirts. No, you need specific loungewear. And I'm like, nah, no thanks. This one I gave a 3.5. Okay, on to my first, no, it's not first book of the month because I have the new system now, but it's somewhat chronological. It's somewhat categorized, but not really. I try to, but meh. Okay, first one is, but it's also the second book I read this month. Whatever. It's a sci-fi book. It's Elder Race by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and it's a novella. It's like less than 200 pages long. So in this, the fourth daughter of the queen goes to a sorcerer for some help with some demons, but the sorcerer is not a sorcerer. He's actually an anthropologist from Earth sent to look over a local colony who was put on the planet centuries ago. They go about to fight the demon. Overall, a very entertaining read. The writing is very good when they reveal that the anthropologist, Nia, is actually a human. He just has like, you know, when technology is so advanced, it's magic. I really like that kind of trope, I guess it's called. And it's revealed like in the second chapter or the third chapter when they approach the sorcerer's tower, which is not actually a tower. It's an outpost. The review is excellent. You can really feel the sorcerer, well, he's not the sorcerer, Elder Nia's emotions through the page because he was left behind. He volunteered to stay when the other anthropologists went back to Earth, and he was in stasis for a very long time. So he has some emotions about it. And you can really feel it. It's painful. But I just felt like something was missing. I feel like it should be longer or something. Because, I mean, it's concise. It's like less than 200 pages. But I felt like I wanted more. So I gave this 4 stars. So the next book is still in the sci-fi territory. It's quite a well-known book. It is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. Obviously the Jurassic Park movie is based off this, so I don't really have to tell you the plot, right? Because everybody knows Jurassic Park at this point. It's pretty similar to the movie, but the characters are way flatter. They are very tropey. And the writing is it's really not that good. I struggled a bit to read this, but the plot is pretty gripping. I can see why they made this into a film. Some characters in this are just so insufferable. Lex, I think in the movie, they redelegated some roles, like the children's roles are a bit changed. But in this one, Lex, the girl, she's 7. She's so annoying, like, come on. I know she was a kid, but still, she was so annoying. But I like that she regressed a bit after the T-Rex attack. But that's the only like character development she gets, because after that she's just an insufferable kid. And she's like, oh, I wanna eat, I'm hungry, where are we? And like there's the looming danger of a T-Rex still chasing after them, and then she has no awareness. But in a sense also kids have no awareness. So I have mixed feelings about Lex, but I can confirm that she is very annoying. And then there's no character development in all of them. Like, all of the characters end up the same place where they started. The owner of the park, Hammond, at the start and at the end, his character is still the same. He still thinks he's in the right for like opening up the park and all. And also he dies in this one, but he's back in the movies and in the next book. And also there's that one character in the movie that says, "Life will find a way." That character, he dies in this one, in the book. Comes back in the next book though, because the next book apparently is a sequel to the movies and not the book. And also he was more annoying in the book. He monologues for so long about chaos theory, it was like one whole page worth. And I'm just like, is anybody actually just sitting there and listening to him? For more than half the book, he's like lying there because he got attacked by the T-Rex. And then he dies. What the heck is that? I still gave this 3.5 because you have to respect it for what it is. It was a pulp action book that was unique for its time. Now on to more historical fantasy. This is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. It's historical / fantasy. So it's set in 1893. Where you have 3 sisters. It's always 3 sisters in this kind of things. I mean, once again for the first time in 7 years, but coincidentally, it was in front of a mysterious big tower that came out of nowhere in the square and it was buzzing with magic. Because these 3 sisters was raised by their grandmother who had like magic. So together, they will form the Sisters of Avalon to recover magic and power for women. The writing is alright, I think it was alright, but there was a lot of odd twos that somehow bugged me, like it should be should, but instead of should, they put ought to. There's this whole concept inside where like there are no magic books, people put scrolls and whatnot. No, the magic is hidden in like tapestries and embroideries and fairy tales, which is the concept is very interesting, it's very good. I really liked it, but it also feels a bit silly because you cast a spell by going ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, and you keep chanting it, and it seems a bit absurd. That's what it is. There's a lot of strong female characters in this because this is a very female-centric book, and there's romance, there is a baby. But they do feel a bit tropey because even in the book, the whole trope of them was the maiden, crone and mother, and they never break out of those roles. I expected some subversion, but it never came. It's a very good book. Yeah, it touches on the topics like the rights of black women back in the day, the rights of queer women, the rights of working class women, and the rights of poor women, you know. It's a very woman-centric story, which I really like. I gave this a 4 stars. So this one is also another historical-ish, not really fantasy, magic realism book. This is it. Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Coopersmith. So this is a debut novel by this author. I picked this up not knowing much about it other than like it was set in Vietnam. It's a bit of horror. At the back it says, 2 young Vietnamese women go missing decades apart. Both are fearless, both are lost, and both will have their revenge. The plot is very hard to summarize anyway. We first follow Winnie, a Vietnamese American who moves to Vietnam to like find herself and also to teach English, but then she's not very interested at being an English teacher anyway. So the story really starts off with her disappearance, and then we have flashbacks, and it goes through her story, and then it goes through the guys she's staying with, long story, and then it jumps across multiple characters to tell this epic tale-ish. I don't know how to describe it really. It covers some folklore, some Vietnamese folklore, and like French colonization. It's just very confusing. And I expected a revenge story. If you read this, you expect a revenge story, but a revenge story doesn't really happen until the end. More than half of the book, you're just wondering in confusion, wondering like what is happening. Because all these characters feel very unrelated. But it turns out they're like grandma of long, and then it's very confusing. It is very well written though, and the description is a bit too much at times. I'll post some. I posted on my Discord. It's just, I mean, it does well at painting a picture, but do I want to see that picture? No. Yeah, in the end, it's a very ambitious book, I think. All the history and the culture and the food described in this was very good. It's just the horror aspect of it, I was very confused. I gave this 3 stars. The next book is a fantasy one again now. It is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. So it's high fantasy and it's first in the band trilogy. So basically, the band is back again for one last tour. But the band is the band of adventurers, right? But they're also musicians, as in it's trying to parallel it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Yes, it's a 70s/80s music industry inspired high fantasy. I say music industry, but it's mainly just like rock bands. So we follow the main character, Clay Cooper, while he's living out his life post-touring. And they were like legendary back in the day, but that was like 20 years ago, I think. And then his ex-bandmate shows up at his door asking for his help because his daughter has left to join the band herself and is trapped in a city under siege. And the siege is by like demons and not humans. So we set out to get the band back together and save Rose. That's the main plot. The concept itself is very interesting because music, but I'm also not very familiar with the era. So there are a lot of references to the bands, Black Sabbath. They are obscure enough to not feel like they're shoehorned in. It's not that jarring. And each member of the adventurous band is like an actual band, because Clay is obviously the bassist, my favorite member of every band. Like the cool, calm, quiet type. And for example, Moog is the wizard, and he's also a keyboardist. And also his name is a reference to the synthesizer Moog brand. The story itself is, I wrote here generic. It's not generic, it's just like fantasy. It's what you expect from fantasy. But it's slightly emotional at times because, you know, you could tie into your daughter. Your daughter is about to die, going on the journey, and you save your daughter. But ultimately, the stakes never feel very high because they seem to just plow through every situation they're involved in. And there are a lot of reviews that say this is like a D&D campaign. And it does feel that at times because you feel like, oh, he rolled a nat 20 and then this supposedly hard, impossible encounter is just done. And also, the father of Rose, Gabriel, is supposed to be like the frontman slash, you know, vocalist of the band. But he doesn't have much of a personality other than I need to save Rose. The jokes in this, there's a lot of jokes involved. And it's a bit, it's not crude, but it feels a bit immature. It feels like, you know, Marvel jokes, like in Thor Ragnarok, where there's like constant barrage of jokes. Yeah, it's that kind, and also a lot of dick jokes. So I can see why it's popular. It's a fun read. I wanted a bit more stakes, higher stakes, but I really like the enemy and the big bad. From what I remember, the big bad had like bunny ears. So they look like people, but then they have like bunny ears. And they're supposedly a different race before the humans or some shit. I don't remember much from it, but I remember enjoying it until the end, and I'm like, yeah, because I could see where it was going. It felt quite predictable at times also. Yes, 3.5 stars. Let's talk about the audiobook I listened to, which is It's Always in the Memoirs of Lady Trent. This is Voyage of the Basilisk. Mrs. Camhurst strikes again, that's what I wrote, now on a ship and with her son with her. So she brought her son along this time, because last time she went, she just left her son, but the son was only 2 years old. This is set 6 years later, after the second book, so the son is 8 years old, and then she brought her, the son, and the governess, and also the guy from the last few expeditions. I don't remember his name. They go on a ship this time. So they're sailing, so they explore the different continents to learn more about dragons. So this is a more adventurous story than the first two. Meet plenty of cool new characters like the ship captain and some guy they meet later on. I forgot his name. Suhail, that's his name. Suhail, who also functions as translator because he also knows a lot of languages. So because the different places have different languages, of course. Okay, so the first half of the book is a bit more adventurous, but then a shipwreck happens, so that's the second half. And then it's more focused on the story, which I like. It's They shipwreck on a bunch of islands that's like Hawaii-ish inspired. And then more plot happens. No, it's more action in this one, and there is some discussion about gender, because they think Isabella is like a third gender because she wears pants, but she's a woman. So that, you know, there's still the whole misogyny thing back in the day, as is like constant theme throughout the whole series anyway. And we also explore Isabella's relationship with her son a bit more, which I really like. Yeah, that's all I remember because I listened to it, so it's a bit drawn out and I don't remember much of it because it was over 2 weeks ago. 4 stars. 4 stars. So the next books I want to talk about, books, because it's a whole ass trilogy. It is the Saint of Steel series by T. Kingfisher. She writes children's books under Ursula Vernon, and T. Kingfisher is for the more adult. So it's actually a fantasy romance series. Yeah, it's set in the world of White Rat, which is the biggest series, which include The Clockwork Boys, The Wonder Engine, and Sword Heart. I know Sword Heart is also another romance. I am not sure about the other two. And then in this, we follow paladins who follow... What's my writing? Follow paladins who follow the Saint of Steel. But Saint of Steel died. And at a very unfortunate time too, because they were heading to battle and then they felt the Saint die. And what the Saint does, not does, but then what the paladins have is something called the Black Tide, which basically means they go berserk, but they will follow the Saint's commands. But then the Saint died, so they go berserk, nobody to control them. So, you know, chaos ensues. A lot of them die. They wreak destruction. But this is the time skip 3 years later, there's a few of them left. Yeah, so the remainder of the paladins now work under the White Rat, who then solve problems around the city. So in the first book, it's called Paladin's Grace, follows Stephen as he tries to solve a mystery including beheaded corpses. So while patrolling one day in where they find the beheaded corpses, he runs into Grace. She was running from some bad guys or something, or she was like picking flowers where she's not meant to. She's a perfumer, and then she saves her by, you know, faking, you know, the trope that you fake in an alleyway because it's near the red light district. So yeah, basically it's a romance between Stephen and Grace, the perfumer. And then Grace has her own plot of some political thing. I picked this up. I picked this up because Grace is a perfumer and I've been very into perfumes lately. And I like Stephen. Stephen's nice. Stephen knits. Don't see a paladin who knits very often. So I really like the romance. Very cute. It's a lot of pining. I just didn't like how the mystery of the beheaded corpse leads into the next book, because it felt it was like a very big setup, but then it only continues in the next book. Let's just move into the next book, and then I'll just say my thoughts on all three. Right? Okay, Paladin's Strength follows Isvan. He was introduced in the previous book also, but it's more of a womanizer. That's what I remember from him. And then he follows up on the beheading events from the previous book, so he's traveling around the land. They run into Clara, who is a nun, who is looking for the rest of her order who were kidnapped. And then romance plot. I like Clara. Clara is a very strong woman. They say she's muscled, she's tall, she's taller than most men. So she's a badass. Let's move on to the third book. We end the beheading mystery here. Yeah, it's all linked to Clara's order. I don't know what it's called, order convent being kidnapped as well, so it's tied in. It's a lot of fighting. It's more fighting in this one than the previous one. Third book, Paladin's Hope, follows Galen, another paladin, but he is more of the insane ones because he was in the worst of the battle. And he has night terror, so when he is like, he screams in the night when he's sleeping, and you're not supposed to wake him up because he'll just like go berserk. And Piper, a lich doctor, who helped out in the first book. So in this, there is also a gnoll constable. A gnoll is basically badger-like creatures, but they like speak. I won't say English, but whatever the human language is, but then they have their own culture and all. Basically, they are a different race lah. Yeah, but the gnoll constable reaches out for help to solve a mystery because like the higher up, the constable, no, the chief, I don't remember the ranks, the leader, human leader, didn't want to follow up So he goes to the paladin and the lich doctor because it involves dead bodies. So in this one, I love this one. This one is so good. It's also men loving men romance. So it's a lot of gnolls. I love gnolls. Ever since they were introduced in the second book, they were just so cute. They're very interesting creatures. They straight up call Galen, because he's red-haired, Tomato Head, and they have like nicknames for different people, and they're very funny. Also in this, if you see on Storygraph, when you review it, you can say lovable characters, yes, no, it's complicated. And 99% of this book said lovable characters. 99, so it's the gnolls, man, it's the gnolls. So yeah, in this one, the last one is also more action. It's a bit of more mystery and action because they're in a death maze, basically. All of the romances, they're all like pining, and I think that's the kind of romance I like to read. And also it's from the perspective of the paladin and the love interest. But because they're all paladins following a dead saint, their struggles are very similar, which is like they're not good enough because they're afraid that they'll just go berserk one day. But the love interest, what can I say about Piper? I said Clara. Clara is a very strong character. She's willing to fight, she'll bite off heads, literally. But Grace does feel like a damsel in distress, a bit. She fights back a bit, but she's quite, can't say she's quite passive, but she's very into perfumes, so I like her. And Piper is just socially awkward, because you expect that from somebody that works with dead bodies, right? They have enough character, they have enough personality for me to like them. And yeah, there's a lot of character growth through the book. And then it ends on a cliffhanger. And I want to read more. I think T. Kingfisher is planning to write more books in this universe, and I want it. I need more of this universe because it's so interesting. The first two books get a 4 stars rating, and the last book gets a 4.5. It could be improved, you know? So we're kind of done with fantasy now. This is horror. I should have moved the other book here, but it is what it is. Next book I'm going to talk about is The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. Yes, I read it because I loved the trilogy so much and needed something else from her. And yes, this is horror / magical realism. In this we follow Kara, who is a woman in her 30s going through a divorce. Also in the last, I forgot to say, in the Paladin series, they're all in their 30s. So that's nice to read. She moves back, she's going through a divorce, so she moves back home into a weird uncle's museum. So museum's full of like weird things like a Bigfoot statue, taxidermied animals and like cults, you know, those kind of things. And she finds a mysterious portal to another world and explore. Then I said shenanigans, question mark. I mean, that's basically a plot. It's a portal fantasy. So it is horror. It's very Lovecraftian inspired horror. Yeah, it's kind of scary, it's kind of spooky. But it's also comedic enough so I don't feel scared all the time. Some people don't like it, but I enjoyed it. The writing style is very similar to the trilogy. But I really relate to Kara a lot. Like her head is just so me, so I really liked her. Yeah, and there's a lot of pop culture references that millennials probably will get. The bad guys basically can hear your thoughts or something, and then if they know you're thinking about them, they will start to approach you. So she starts singing this Barney song. John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, his name is my name too. I gave this 4 stars. That's all I can say about it. I liked it. It's enjoyable. It's creepy but also funny, but it's very millennial type humor. Yes, 4 stars. And the last book of this category, and also what I read in June, is Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. So it got recommended to me right after I read Hollow Places in my Kobo. So I just borrowed it from the library. This is also a novella. It's like less than 200 pages. It's historical / horror. So it's like 1910s, 1920s Prohibition America. The Ku Klux Klan are gaining power in Georgia, but they are actually monsters. So we follow Marie Boudreau, a bootlegger and a monster slayer with a sword. And it's a magical sword. And I must admit, I'm not like familiar with Prohibition America or Ku Klux Klan. What's here is basically a Chosen One story, but it's just in that setting. So it's interesting. The horror is also like the Hollow Ones. It's also Lovecraftian, but I didn't feel it was as spooky. There's a lot of body horror in this one. It's more body horror. You know, you can't say it's more body horror. Yeah, it's equal. Equal amounts of body horror. But it didn't spook me as much as the Hollow Places. But the concept is unique, and I think it works. But I don't know, I just felt like something was missing. I gave it a 3.5. Still quite a good read if you want a quick read. You can read this or Elder Race. Yes, so that is it. That is the 12 books that I read in June. Yeah, it was quite a slump month. I didn't read much until like near the end of the month. And also I only read like 2 physical copies. Everything else was on my Kobo. I'll show you. I put stickers on it. Also, I'm trying, this is Vita Nostra because I'm trying to read it. I put a cow sticker on it. Also, I have cow earring. It's showing the right way. And also a corgi. Because why not? You know, I've been doing this for 6 months already. It's still not any good at describing books, but you know, it's kind of more of an archive, really. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, pew pew pew. And hope you enjoyed this video and, you know, tell me what books I should read and what not. I will see you in August or July. Yes.